Social engineering in the FBI, a cautionary tale for IT help desks. British police arrest an alleged member of the Crackers with Attitude. New crimeware gets more evasive, and ransomware continues to appear in fresh variants. Congress passes legislation friendly to the US-EU Privacy Shield Accord. Cyber stocks have a rough week, but private equity still seems to like the sector. And we consider Valentine's Day from a cyber perspective.
This CyberWire podcast is made possible by the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute, providing the technical foundation and knowledge needed to meet our nation's growing demand for highly skilled professionals in the field of information security, assurance, and privacy. Learn more online at isi.jhu.edu.
This is John Petrick, the CyberWire's editor, here in Baltimore, filling in for Dave Bittner with your CyberWire Week in Review podcast for this Friday, February 12th, 2016. This week saw the revelation that a hacktivist succeeded in gaining access to data on about 28,000 U.S. FBI and Department of Homeland Security personnel. The data have the look of material culled from an Outlook directory, names, titles, that sort of thing, and most observers are assuming that the breach is genuine. The authorities are investigating in the customary tight-lipped fashion. Motherboard seems to have a source among those responsible, but little is known about them beyond their expressed support for Palestinian causes and the name they chose for themselves, that is, the .govs. The CyberWire spoke with Leo Tadeo yesterday about the incident. Currently CSO for CryptZone and formerly special agent in charge of the Special Operations Cyber Division of the FBI's New York office, Tadeo told us that, quote, "What is as certain as tomorrow's sunrise is the fact that the FBI will put significant resources into finding whoever is responsible. Many criminals try to gain notoriety by embarrassing the FBI. Sooner or later, most of them wind up in a federal penitentiary. While the FBI can't catch all hackers, it can identify and arrest almost any hacker when it decides it's important enough. The hackers in this case just made a huge mistake in their risk-reward calculation," unquote. The breach seems to have been accomplished through social engineering. That is, the hacker apparently posed as a befuddled employee and induced compliant members of the Bureau's IT staff to help him gain access to some account. The information compromised doesn't appear very sensitive, but it was apparently obtained by circumventing the policies in place, including requirements for two-factor authentication. Tadeo noted to us that this wasn't any sort of technical defeat of two-factor authentication. The hacker simply persuaded someone to give up a token. Tadeo thought that training and employee awareness would be more in order than any overhaul of policy. In particular, he pointed to the unfortunate necessity of IT help personnel regarding any caller as a potential adversary. For the full text of our interview, and for Leo Tadeo's discussion of how hardening the interior may offer a better return on investment than shoring up the perimeter, visit thecyberwire.com. The hacker who got the FBI data will remind many of the Crackers with Attitude, another nominally pro-Palestinian crew who doxed some senior members of the U.S. intelligence community last year. And late this week saw some movement in the investigation of that case. The East Midland Police in the UK, reportedly working with the FBI, have made an arrest. It's a teenage boy, left unnamed because of his age, which is reported to be either 15 or 16. We expect to hear further developments over the weekend. And, of course, we'll be watching for further news about the .govs. As people in many countries turn their attention to filing their taxes, online criminals have probed various national tax systems. Two incidents stand out. In the UK, hackers appear to have obtained access to data held by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, specifically tax filers' self-assessment records. Authorities are bracing for the information's exploitation and filing for fraudulent refunds. And in the U.S., the Internal Revenue Service reports it detected and stopped an automated attack on its electronic filing PIN application. The IRS says no sensitive data were lost, but that it's advising a bit more than 100,000 taxpayers that their e-file account PINs may have been exposed. It's sending them reset instructions. Banking malware, as always, remains worrisome. Some of its latest evolution, as seen in the Mattel and Carbonite groups, shows an increasing sophistication in its ability to gain access and establish persistence. Kaspersky researchers think the criminals are borrowing from the Advanced Persistent Threats, the APTs, pioneered by national cyber espionage services. Another bit of crimeware, the T9000 backdoor that's been affecting Skype, is also providing a case study in increasing sophistication. Palo Alto's been tracking it and doing most of the recent reporting. Dark Reading has a good summary of the salient points of sophistication. The backdoor, they say, represents an evolutionary development. In this case, T9000 is derived from T5000, which Cylance discovered in 2013. Distributed by spear phishing, T9000 is being used in targeted attacks to collect intelligence on specific victims, automatically capturing data about infected systems and stealing specific kinds of files. It's evasive. It can apparently detect 24 security products and customize its installation to avoid detection. And it installs itself in a multi-stage process designed to make the most of its evasive capabilities. Given the widespread use of Skype by law firms engaged in discovery, attorneys might be well advised to look to their defenses and close the T9000 door. Some other new malware threats also appeared this week. Zscaler researchers have turned up an Android SMS stealer Trojan that's targeting users of Alipay, the Chinese payment app. The Trojan masquerades as a security app. A new variant of ransomware also hits the wild. Bleeping Computer describes UmbraCrypt, an evolution of CryptBoss. Some of its victims believe they were infected through remote desktop or terminal services. AmsaSoft is working on its CryptBoss decryptor to see if the tool can be effective against UmbraCrypt. We wish good luck to AmsaSoft in their endeavors, and in the meantime, prudent operators will, as always, back up their files. In the marketplace, cybersecurity stocks saw a rocky week. Observers look at the same data and draw very different conclusions. Most analysts, however, see the cyber sector as being affected by the more general market troubles, with weakness in some allied IT sectors dragging down its valuations. Last week's unsettling news about the troubles at Norse continues to reverberate, but venture capital continues to move into cybersecurity startups. Schools and universities expand the place that cybersecurity education has in their curricula. In schools, especially in the elementary grades, much attention is given to online safety. Secondary schools and universities continue to look for ways of meeting the increasing demand for trained cyber labor, and new graduate professional training is also being offered. Brown University, for example, has recently launched an executive master's in cybersecurity program. The CyberWire spoke with the program's director about the challenges and goals of running a degree program for people well into the early and middle stages of their careers.
Let's say you've got a job in cyber, you want to continue your education, but you're having trouble finding the time. Well, the folks at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island have just launched what they're calling an executive master's degree program. Alan Ussis teaches computer science at Brown.
This is a program directed towards working professionals. Therefore, it's not a full-time residential program like many other master's degrees that are offered. The program is 16 months from start to finish, and of the 16 months, there will be 4 weeks held on the Brown University campus in Providence, Rhode Island, where students will have face-to-face interactions, not only with faculty, but with each other. And then there will be a 5th week held in the San Francisco Bay Area where the students will have a chance to interface with corporate executives that we've lined up.
According to Ussis, a focus of the program is integrating previous work experience with the new curriculum.
One of the hallmarks of the program is what we're calling the Critical Challenge Project. And this is a student-selected project that ideally ties back to some of their current job responsibilities and acts as a integration point. Whereas we move through the curriculum, they will draw the appropriate learning from those subjects that tie back then to the project that they're working on.
He also believes the hybrid nature of the program, mixing online learning with on-campus, face-to-face experiences, is one of its key strengths.
There certainly are available to students fully online programs that don't have these extra dimensions, but we think those dimensions are important for a number of reasons. We expect students to be learning from each other in this program. I can't emphasize enough the kind of diversity that we hope to achieve in our student cohort, because each of them, as working professionals, will bring something into the conversation from their unique point of view. I think those conversations are best facilitated after there's been a face-to-face encounter or opportunity to get to know one another, and then is reinforced with the kind of periodic opportunities to get together, and in between, of course, all the online engagements that students can have.
In a highly technical field, Ussis says the program doesn't lose sight of the human factors.
The technology is important. The policies are important. At the end of the day, it's up to human beings to decide to do the right thing. And it's also up to system designers to help the human beings using the systems to do the right thing. And we've got some great faculty here at Brown who have expertise in that kind of design problem. And we have an entire course in our curriculum that will address those subjects.
You can learn more about the Brown University Executive Master's Degree Program at cs.brown.edu. And watch out for those RISD grads from down the way.
In news of transnational threats, ISIS hasn't gone away. Police raids in Europe continue to pull in suspected supporters of violent jihad. In the U.S., the Department of Homeland Security announces plans for increased attention to social media, particularly in the context of screening people seeking to enter the country. Industry took some early steps this week toward responding to the president's call for help combating the online activities of terrorists and their sympathizers. Google, Twitter, and Facebook have all taken steps to inhibit radicalization and terrorist inspiration. But there's still nothing to suggest that the private sector has a technical solution to the problems security services and their research arms continue to grapple with. While much needs to be done in implementing the recently concluded EU-US Privacy Shield Agreement, the U.S. Congress advanced such implementation this week. It passed the Judicial Redress Act, which gives non-U.S. citizens standing to sue for breaches of privacy.
This CyberWire podcast is brought to you through the generous support of Betamore, an award-winning co-working space, incubator, and campus for technology and entrepreneurship located in the Federal Hill neighborhood of downtown Baltimore. Learn more at betamore.com.
Elsewhere in the U.S., the National Security Agency describes its plans for a reorganization that would presumably bring its offensive and defensive arms into closer collaboration. The president's budget includes a big boost for a wide array of cybersecurity programs, and the White House announces what it characterizes as a bold national cyber action plan. Most observers give that plan fairly positive reviews, but they praise it for continuity and common sense rather than for groundbreaking boldness. And regulatory agencies continue to expand their role in overseeing cybersecurity. The University of Maryland's Marcus Rauschecker gave the CyberWire his thoughts on the FTC's increasingly important role in cybersecurity regulation.
Once again, I'm joined by Marcus Rauschecker. He's from the University of Maryland Center for Health and Homeland Security. They're one of our academic and research partners. Marcus, the role of the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, what is their role in regulating cyber?
So the Federal Trade Commission has really been asserting itself when it comes to protecting consumers in cybersecurity matters. The Federal Trade Commission Act prohibits unfair and deceptive trade practices, and this is the language from which the FTC draws its authority. The FTC can go after businesses that conduct unfair and deceptive trade practices. The FTC has interpreted the unfair and deceptive trade practices language from the FTC Act as giving it the authority to go after businesses that aren't doing enough to adequately safeguard consumer information. The FTC is asserting itself more and more when it comes to consumer protection in cases of data breaches. And there's always been a question about whether or not the FTC really has the authority to regulate businesses that aren't protecting consumer information. The important thing to note here is that the Third Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that indeed the FTC does have the authority to regulate based on the FTC Act and based on unfair and deceptive trade practices. So if a business doesn't do enough to secure consumer or customer information, according to the Third Circuit, the FTC does have the authority to go and regulate that business.
So what do we see on the horizon? How can we expect to see the FTC exerting their authority?
Well, given the ruling by the Third Circuit, I think we'll see that the FTC will assert itself more and more. And I think a lot of people are looking to the FTC to actually fill that role of regulating when it comes to insufficient security practices. An example of the FTC becoming more of a resource for consumers would be the creation of a website, identitytheft.gov, that the FTC has set up, where consumers can go if they've been victims of identity theft. The website will guide them through the response to any kind of identity theft that they might have experienced.
Marcus Rauschecker, thanks for joining us.
We finish this look at the week that's coming to a close with a look forward to the weekend. Sunday, of course, is Valentine's Day, that annual celebration of romantic love whose observation is customarily attended with anxiety, loneliness, frustrated expectations, disappointment, love, helplessness, desperation, love, and every other arrow in Cupid's quiver. Did we mention love? Naturally, there's a cyber angle to all of this. Desperation, the desire to avoid disappointing someone's expectations, or at least the desire to have plausible deniability insofar as one's responsibility for disappointment of said expectations, well, these will naturally lead to impulsive online purchases of candy, flowers, novelties, bibelot, and so forth, all on e-commerce sites guaranteeing delivery in time for the holiday. Obviously, as always when shopping online, caveat emptor, look to the security and the reputation of the merchant who's proffering the wares. But wait, there's more. It's not just commerce that can be tricky, but the heart itself lays many traps for the unwary. It's the season for online connections, and thus also a season for exploitation of the lovelorn, conducted by both natural persons and by catfish, that is, by completely fictitious personalities with only a virtual existence. So let the heart heed the head this weekend and watch out for the usual spam, con jobs, and social engineering. But for all that, enjoy the holiday. And if you'd like an upbeat take on cyber matters of the heart, visit Sophos at nakedsecurity.sophos.com. They've got an IT love songs collection up, as seen, they say, on TV, although we haven't seen it on TV, actually. It's available on CD, they say, but we're not ordering. We're cautious and stingy that way. Or you can just use the commercial for screensavers or ringtones. But do visit Sophos and enjoy their music videos. And then show your sysadmin some love. Appropriate professional love, of course. After all, they're the ones keeping you out of trouble by applying this week's patches. And that's the CyberWire's Week in Review for this week ending Friday, February 12th, 2016. The CyberWire will be taking Monday off as we observe Washington's birthday, but we'll be back as usual on Tuesday with our daily podcast and news brief. For links to all of today's stories, along with interviews, our glossary, and more, visit thecyberwire.com. The CyberWire podcast is produced by Cyberpoint International, and this is the editor, John Petrick. Our regular host, Dave Bittner, will be back from wherever he's been vacationing next week, and it's been fun filling in for him. Enjoy the weekend, and thanks for listening.